Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers here again after a tough loss against the New Orleans Saints. We are 2-5. The last three games we've lost and had our chances to win, and we just didn't take care of it down the stretch. And so here we are, Keith. What's your mood like?
The defense has improved,
seemingly.
In the last three games,
facing lesser offenses.
True, but New Orleans is a better offense than the Steelers, and they played better against New Orleans than they did the Steelers. But so their defense is improving slightly, but the offense is a dumpster fire. Regressing. You're being really nice. It's an absolute dumpster fire.
Well, it's better with Russell Wilson. I mean, you have to admit.
They had an 84-yard completion to DK Metcalf on the fifth play of the game, which
accounted for nearly half of their total offense.
He knocked a guy down and then ran everyone to the end zone, and that was that one play was half of their offense, and they never got near the end zone again. They tried three long field goals in terrible conditions and got one of them. That's it. That's the rest of the offense for the entire game. The offense is an absolute dumpster fire. Not just, Geno Smith has been playing genuinely terribly, but the offensive line, especially Kyle Fuller, is there's nothing. There's just nothing to work with. They've just been bad. Not having Lewis in there, you've got Fuller in there. It's just been, yeah. I mean,
you're seeing some diminishing returns now on Brown over at left tackle, where he allowed 3-4 pressures in this game and a sack. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of been that way, in the prior games as well. So,
yeah, I mean, he's still good. He's still really good, but he's not that Pro Bowl caliber guy anymore. Right. He's just above average. He's good
with no real sure thing left on the roster to replace him next year, and lack of a top end draft pick. It's pretty interesting times. So we're go ahead.
I say you look at the offensive line in this last game, and I thought Jackson played well.
Yeah, he was probably the best lineman. Yeah,
that's the end of the list. So they're bad up front. They're worse at quarterback, and the offense
and they don't have as consistent running game because their top running back is out, and Penny never materialized, and so they're depending on Collins and then a couple of young guys that can't really run between the tackles yet.
Yeah, Collins is playing pretty well. I mean,
he's given the effort that he can, given the run blocking.
Yeah, and I thought that Penny looked like he was getting his feet under him a little bit, but they don't trust him yet. Right, he's just coming back. He's just healthy, and they don't trust him yet. So they ran, what was it, 5 straight runs with Alex Collins in one.
Yeah, I mean they don't trust him. They don't seem to trust.
They don't trust
wide
Geno
receivers anymore. They don't trust Geno Smith.
I don't think it's the wide receivers. I think they flat out don't trust Geno Smith.
Right,
because
if you're Shane Waldron, who are you going to trust? You got to kind of go with what you've got. He's been in camp the whole time. He's been with the team for 3 years. The team trusts him. The team trusts him. Here's the thing about Geno Smith. He's not spectacular in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't do anything really well. He does things. What he does well, he does just solid. So game manager wise, I think he's okay. Given the roster he's got to work with, I think he's okay. But he's not going to test you. And given the conservative nature of the offense, we're not going to allow him to test anybody.
Well, he's not going
to make a lot of mistakes.
You've got two of the best deep
turnovers
threats
and stuff, but
you've got two of the best deep threats in the entire NFL.
Yeah,
and a quarterback who can't throw the ball.
You have a backup quarterback on your roster who can't throw the ball. That's probably going to change in the offseason. I think that has kind of That should have showed up in practice. And given the idea that we had kind of a carousel of quarterbacks, especially this year in this offseason, go through the offense and have them stick with Geno, I think they probably would like to have somebody there to develop, but they haven't proven that. They haven't drafted a quarterback high.
And they shouldn't as long as Wilson's here.
Well, yeah, okay. But then you get into a situation like this where you need 3 or 4 games from your backup and you can't get it.
True.
And then you're in a real big hole. And now because of that, because you don't have a backup that can go at least get you 500 or maybe 2 out of 3 wins, top end, 2 out of 3 wins. But man, that would be really awesome, right? So now that hasn't happened, and clearly I think Russell Wilson could have gotten at least 2.
These last 2 games,
if not 3 of
these last 2 games would have been
okay. So we agree on that. So right, we'd have a completely different conversation if Geno Smith was able to execute down the stretch in these games. Let me give you some examples. After taking over against the Rams, he was intercepted on the first play to Tyler Lockett, and they ended with a field goal like 3 plays later.
He wasn't even close to Lockett.
The Steelers, he lost fumble.
Yep, got hit from behind, lost a fumble.
And then Pittsburgh set up for a chip shot win right after that. And then we saw Monday night, he took over with a minute 56 left in the game. He was 0 for 2, sacked twice. New Orleans took over on downs and ran out the clock. Okay. So I know. There's a huge level of frustration. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. The entire community of fans for the Seahawks is frustrated. There's a lot of blame going around, as to be expected when you're 2-5.
Yeah.
Stuff's going to start to fall apart a little bit. So
this team hasn't had they haven't had a losing season since 2010.
Okay. So, but my thing is, we need to kind of parse it a little bit and kind of really kind of figure it out, because Pete Carroll's head's got to roll, of course. Ken Norton Jr. is gone. We need to trade Russell Wilson. I've seen Lockett on the docket to be traded. Jamal Adams, of course. Bobby Wagner. Pretty much everybody that you could throw out there name-wise is kind of getting tossed about as if this is just really easy peasy. Hey, we'll just get rid of all these guys. We'll get some draft picks next year. We'll start from scratch, and Russell Wilson's going to be all in because we got a brand new coach. He's going to be Russell Wilson centric.
Fans are upset, but that doesn't make them rational. We got all these draft picks,
and it's going to be amazing because we're going to start from scratch. It's like people don't realize how difficult that is, let alone being able to trade all of your bad players. A, B, draft picks don't mean anything. C, when you don't have a head coach, it's like premier and really rallies a team. I mean, it's a crapshoot, right? And then if your quarterback doesn't buy in, you don't have anything. And so for me, I'm taking a little bit of a step back approach to kind of this whole discussion in a sense, in that I think a lot of things need to be addressed in the off season, and I think they will be. But right now, Russell Wilson looks like he's going to miss another game. He's got a bye week and then possibly returns for that Green Bay game. That Green Bay game is a tough game. I know we might lose that game. Probably will. But what I'm winning it anyway. What I'm saying is that, well, technically it seems like the season's over. We still have a shot. We still have a shot at a winning record. We may or may not get in the playoffs. We might need help getting in the playoffs. Who knows? I don't know that it necessarily matters in a general sense, though.
For the Seahawks to get into the playoffs, they would have to, once after the bye week.
8-2, right.
Right.
And then some help.
Yeah, and a lot of help.
Because we've lost against Minnesota and we've lost against New Orleans.
Yeah.
I get that, Keith. So what I'm saying is it might not matter. What I'm saying is it might not matter because we'd be a sitting duck in the playoffs anyway. It would be a name only, just a kind of an achievement based on how we started, and we kind of feel better at that point. But the reality is this offense and defense on the roster seems to be riddled with holes, insurmountable holes that we can't necessarily fix right now, although we can talk about some trade deadline stuff if you want to kind of go down that route. But My attention, I think, in this conversation, we don't really need to rehash this game against the Saints. I think that the conversation is just bigger than that. What is your kind of roadmap tell you? What's kind of your instinct tell you as to how the next 10 games plays out for this season?
They should win this week, even if no matter who's playing at quarterback, it's Jacksonville. They're awful. Then they
looked okay against Miami, but Miami looks awful too.
Miami is terrible as well. So if you get Russell Wilson back after that, you're 3-6 at that point, and
3-5.
3-5 at that point. But then you're going into Green Bay, and so they'll be 3-6. And needing to be undefeated from there to the end of the year to get into the playoffs.
I agree.
And they're not going to be able to do that. They won't be able to get past Arizona twice. They won't be able to. They probably.
Let's just say they miss the playoffs, Keith. But let's say they get back up to 500. It doesn't really matter. So what I'm saying is, they can get to 500. They can get into the playoffs. They could have a losing record for the first time in a while. I don't know that it necessarily matters. I think the offseason seems to be one of change coming. And so my question to you is, what level of change are we talking about? Are we talking about a small rebuild with the same head coach, same defensive coordinator, same offensive coordinator, same franchise quarterback with other pieces?
What are you asking?
Okay,
are you asking what I want or what will happen?
Both.
Okay, because those are very different things.
Let's do both. What I would like to see is for this team to build around Russell Wilson. And that's going to mean not building around Pete Carroll. And so you build around Russell Wilson. You make the commitment to move on, get a coach, reorganize the team. You have one down year, you come back, and you come back strong. That's what I want to see them do. What are they going to do? Pete Carroll won't be fired. Everyone keeps saying he should be and blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling you, I agree.
He has been.
If he wants to be here, Keith, I believe that he will be here.
He has been the rock of this organization for 12 years. They have missed the playoffs once the whole time he's been here. There have been. It's been a fantastic run. They're the second winningest team, and if Wilson hadn't got hurt, and even with Wilson getting hurt, they may go on a run here in the second half, and in that case, they will have been the winningest team in the NFL since that point. He's not going anywhere. No one. There's no one in that. There's no one in that organization that's going to send him. He's
going to challenge. Well, there's a couple equations here. Jody Allen, and we talk about that, and it really pisses me off on social media when she gets trashed. That's just completely uncalled for and without merit. Yeah, I'll just say that right now. She's a strong woman. She's a self-made person. She did inherit a company and an organization, yes. But before that, she is a completely qualified human being to in this capacity. In addition to that, she kept the leadership staff on board. These guys know what they're doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's just set that aside for a minute. There is a real question, and it could be for any owner. Are you strong enough or willing enough to insert yourself as an owner to remove a coach who has sort of legacy?
But
because that's the only way that Pete goes, because Pete is the president of football operations. He's the head of every other person in the organization except for Vulcan. He
is. The thing is, the situation isn't, oh, you're going to go remove a head coach. It is, okay, things are so bad that you're going to completely remake the entire organization.
No. You just contradicted what you just said earlier.
No, because that's what removing Pete Carroll is.
No, but you just said it kind of yourself. What would I like to see? And then you said, I want the organization to build around Russell Wilson, to remove the coach. It's a 1-year deal, and then we're back in it. You just said the whole thing needs to be completely torn down, starting with Pete, and it's just completely from scratch. So clarify that for me.
What I'm saying is, what I would like to see is Pete Carroll has been great for the organization. I think he needs to be done coaching. He is the president of football operations. He needs to go be the president of football operations and hire a new coach. Someone not of his coaching tree, to come in, all new ideas, get a guy like his Norton out the door, and bring in new ideas. Like the same thing they did with Waldron and the offense, because it's so easy to see that when Wilson was there and not Geno, the offense was significantly improved over what.
Yeah, I think you do need to give your roster an opportunity with a new coaching staff, especially on the defensive side, because you look at the roster and on paper it looks pretty decent. Like they do need to fill in, obviously. Let's just say 4 out of the 11 starters need to go. Most of those are in the defensive back field and maybe
in the offensive line.
Yeah, and maybe a linebacker. And so if you just kind of micro rebuild on that with a new coach and a new defensive coordinator, and then on the offensive side, you're going to have to re-up on the left tackle, probably a center, and maybe a long-term answer at running back, and add, I don't know what's going on in the offense, because we're still not utilizing tight ends. We're still not running play action as much as we should, given the success rate that we do have.
It's hard to say that we are or not doing anything, because we're watching Geno Smith out there.
Yeah. Well, we knew we had some issues before, but maybe that wasn't long enough with Wilson in place to see the real Shane Waldron thing kind of come into fruition. I'll give you that much, but we can probably find out by the end of the year. Yeah.
So, the difference, what you were saying is for Jody Allen to come in, insert herself and remove a head coach. That's not what she would be doing.
Discussions would have to be made on what to do with Pete.
She would not be inserting herself to remove a head coach. She would be inserting herself to rebuild the entire organization top to bottom. Because that's if Pete is not stepping aside and Jody Allen is coming in and asking for this, that's what's happening. Is Pete's gone. That means you don't have a president
but
anymore.
You do have continuity.
Everyone underneath them.
Yeah. You may have continuity with John Schneider sticking around. I don't know. He's under contract. I don't know. Who knows, right? But that would be a front office piece within the organization that you could theoretically build around if you believed in the job that Schneider's doing. I know that there's question marks and so forth. I think every GM in the league has cycles and they go through stuff. I do like John Schneider. Do you trust him running an organization?
Do I? I think I would like to see him get an opportunity to run an organization.
So have him pick a head coach.
Yeah, because we haven't seen him run an organization. We've seen him do his best to implement what Pete Carroll wants.
Yeah, Keith, I think you're onto something right there.
Pete Carroll has final say over the roster. He has final say over everything. He has
and trades and everything else.
Yes,
right.
He has final say over whether Schneider has a job. He is Schneider's boss, not the other way around. And he does his best to implement what Pete Carroll wants. And I would like to see what John Schneider wants. I mean,
yeah. I'll have to kind of marinate that thought a little bit. I think if you pair John Schneider and Russell Wilson as two minds outside of the football field, of two guys that can come together and really kind of dictate terms, maybe even you throw Bobby Wagner in there. I don't know where he's at. He's got a $20 million contract next year with a $3 million cap hit. He's definitely one of those guys you could get assets for. So that discussion is to be had. But say you got those three guys in a room, you could pick a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, if it's not Shane Waldron, and a head coach, and the really kind of form the basis of the new vision with those three guys. What do you think about that?
I think that would be a great step for the future.
And Bobby kind of leaves his footprint and his legacy in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, you either need to, at this point, trade Wagner and recoup an asset.
Yeah, I think you can do that in the offseason. So I think you play it out this year because you honor him. I don't think you trade him at the trade deadline. That's my personal opinion.
It depends on what he wants. Because if he's like, this year is going to be bad and I'm older, I want to give me a chance to play for another Super Bowl.
He's certainly still saying all the right things in news conferences and stuff.
I know. I'm just saying, if behind the scenes that's what he's saying, he's like, you know what? If there's an opportunity, let's do this. Then you do it.
What if Russell Wilson is saying that? What if Russell Wilson says, you know what? I've been around the league a while. I've seen what good teams look like. This organization is kind of messed up. And I don't want to be around for what's going to need to happen in the next 2 or 3 years.
Then you trade him. You can't trade him now. That would have to happen in the offseason because you're not getting the 3 first-round picks plus mid-season. Where
and Wilson's got a $37 million cap hit next year with a $26 million dead money spot. So we could actually save a little bit of money next year and lose that contract in the future and get all the assets. The problem is no organization is going to be successful without a franchise quarterback.
You can't win without a quarterback.
So it's much better to build around Wilson, a proven commodity in a situation that is tailored for him, because we have not yet seen that yet. Is that your read?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Wilson put into a terribly designed offense that didn't use his strengths with Schottenheimer. We saw him in a situation where the offense was developed to be an outdated West Coast offense with Russell Wilson wrinkles, with Darrell Bevell. And we've seen him this year play 3 games in an offense that's supposed to be tailored to him, but
against
the offensive line,
defenses.
Against really good defenses when his offensive line sucks.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
What have we seen?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I would definitely rebuild the offense and defensive lines. I mean, that's kind of where Russell Wilson even said it, came out. That's what this whole thing last year started with, was the offensive line. I need better protection, et cetera. I believe him.
Yeah.
After seeing what we've seen this year as well, it's like he's right. And that would be definitely a way forward.
We both like Damian Lewis.
Yes.
But he's hurt.
Gabe Jackson's
and we saw what happened without him. There is a big drop off.
We have 2 out of 5 defensive linemen that we could move forward with, and everything else really needs to be completely redone.
Yeah,
Shell's out of contract. Posic's gone next year. Fuller's gone. Brown's likely gone. Brown's on a $3 million deal next year. He's gone. Okay, he's gone. And so we're either going with Forsythe or we're finding something else. And like in free agency, we'll have a ton of money in free agency this year. Cap hit somewhere in the neighborhood of $80-something million. Go out and get your new franchise left tackle or whatever, and then build around that and Russell Wilson. And maybe get yourself a nice running back who can stay on the field. And
I mean, so what I would say with all of this is, you're going to get to a point this season really quickly where this year just doesn't matter. And I would say you're at that point right now, because this team as it's built is not going on that run to get into the playoffs and give themselves a shot.
Yeah.
The offensive line's not good enough. The defense hasn't been good enough. And
there's no signs at all that this defense has anything even closely resembling last season's resurgence in the last 8 games.
I mean, what they did against New Orleans was
it's not too bad, but New Orleans is not a great offense.
They're not.
They allowed almost 200 yards to Alvin Kamara, and most of it was in the air. And they knew it was coming, and they couldn't stop it.
Well, it wasn't that they did stop it. They waited too long to make that adjustment to stop it, but they stopped it. right at the end of the third quarter, all the way through the rest of the game. They finally made the adjustment that they should have made around the end of the first quarter.
Right. But Geno Smith is not a comeback quarterback.
Yeah,
that's just the bottom line.
But they made that it was a half of a game too late on the adjustments on defense to stop Alvin Kamara, and they did. I mean, it's just. But they offense
going into the game, Keith. Name me another player on the New Orleans Saints offense that you were going to key on.
Oh, there wasn't any. That's what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Like Norton, the results have never matched the talent on the roster, and these are the types of things. If you were going into this game, you were game planning around Alvin Kamara. Who else is there? And yet it wasn't until right at the end of the third quarter that they actually did anything to try and slow down Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
There was no game plan to take away the only thing that New Orleans has that you need to focus on. It's just that's a mess. So going forward, like this is what I started with. This is I think the season's over as far as meaningful games. They're not going on the run to get into the playoffs. They might go on the run to get up around 500, which would be great. It'd give the team some momentum going into next year. Make Russell Wilson feel good about how well the team is playing. And it's like, the beginning of the year he got hurt and whatever. That was unfortunate. It just dug him a hole and they couldn't get out of it. But they were still good, right? We could have that narrative, but they're not getting far enough for it to be a meaningful end. So at what point, and I think it should be now, do you start trying to evaluate whether the guys you have are like? Yeah.
I think that we're close. We're very close to that, if not this next week. But I tell you what, Keith, if we lose against Jacksonville, it's over for sure. What I'm saying is, I'm just not sure. Is
Forsyth a left tackle of the future? Is he a guy that we can count on next year? You know what? We have no idea. And honestly, no matter what they would say, publicly, the Seahawks have no idea. They need to play him. And the only way that they play him is either if Brown gets hurt.
Yeah, and they could go with the Curran kid as well on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, if Brown gets hurt,
you don't want to play those guys. If I was Russell Wilson, that would make me very uncomfortable playing two rookies, but maybe one for sure, at least for like a quarter. 2-3 drives, and then
they give him some play, get him some playing time, get some film on him.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of this if it goes further than where it is right now. We're going to have lots of time to talk about this sort of stuff because
you say if it goes further than it is.
Well,
now.
if we lose to Jacksonville, I tell you what, if we win against Jacksonville and we do it fairly handily, and we go into Green Bay and Russell Wilson somehow rallies the team or whatever, we're having a completely different conversation, Keith. We just are.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we are. I mean, it gets a little hopeful, because after that, things start to get winnable in a few different scenarios. Yeah.
So after the Green Bay game, they play Arizona.
Yeah.
So the things get winnable after the Green Bay game. This is what you're telling me.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easier schedule than it is in the first half. I think
the first half of the season it's been a bunch of good teams. Like everyone was really down on.
I think you could argue that we've played 4 out of the top 10 teams in the NFL right now.
Well, everyone was really down on Indy, especially we beat them and then they lost a couple more. And I was like, look what they've been doing since.
Yes, exactly.
Winning.
And the Titans have been doing great. Of course, LA's lost one game. The 49ers were bad and they continue to be.
Which is
I don't know.
It's almost like they have a quarterback problem.
So, all right. So I think what we need to do is we need to just wrap this up because I think this is just a long, drawn out conversation. I think this is a good start. I mean, I think you kind of have the idea that Pete Carroll is gone regardless of the outcome of this season. in a sense. I mean,
I don't think that's true.
I just think that that's probably a way forward, though, that this team could remain somewhat competitive during some sort of if he goes, the whole thing has to go, because you're going to do a new scheme, you're going to have new players that fit the scheme, all that stuff. So it's a big challenge. But
the thing is, you're like, it feels like Pete Carroll's going to be gone, and I don't agree with that. I think that Pete Carroll is back next year. I think we have another year.
Yeah, it just depends, Keith, because, Pete is 70. Does he want to go through a substantial rebuild on a roster? Does he? What if Russell Wilson doesn't buy into whatever it is? And then you're mandatory going into a rebuild because you've lost your franchise quarterback and you've got a whole bunch of draft picks and you're going young and it's just blown up. So
yeah, at that point I can see Pete Carroll retiring and USC is looking for a coach. Right? That there's a scenario. But Pete Carroll's not getting fired. Everyone needs to take a deep breath and say that out loud over and over again. Pete Carroll's not getting fired. It's not going to happen. And so everyone can be angry and frustrated, and that fact that him not getting fired can make you upset. But I'm telling you, Pete Carroll's not getting fired. So if that's what you're hoping for, if you're saying, no, I'm not saying you. I'm talking to everybody. If you're hoping, if your only hope in all of this is that this is a bad year and it's going to be enough to get Pete Carroll out of here, he's not getting fired. If Pete Carroll leaves after this year, it will be because he chose to go. And I'm sorry if that is upsetting.
I agree with that completely, 100%.
So
unless the wheels completely come off, we go 2-15, and Jody comes and their group comes in and says, "You know what? It's time. We're going to go ahead and just wipe the map, and we're going to start over." That could happen. Maybe they're losing too many fans. They look at the bottom line. They look at a lot of stuff, and they know in their heart of hearts that what you said is completely true, and maybe they don't want to wait around for all that. And Pete to kind of try to figure it out. And Russell being all, I think they'd rather have the franchise quarterback than a coach that's 70. I don't know. Maybe not.
If they go 2-15, they won't have the franchise quarterback. I have a hard time believing that Russell Wilson wouldn't do what he did last year and say, "Please trade me."
Well, if he comes back, dude, we're not going 2-15.
No, not at all.
So anyway, okay. Thanks for that lovely conversation, Keith. Yeah. I enjoyed so much talking to you about all of that. The interesting thing, Keith, is we've been doing this.
We talked about a winner.
We've been doing this a while, right? And we've never had to talk about a losing team. 2017 was, but yeah, this is going to be an interesting ride because there's all sorts of other things that we have not had to talk about that we may have to talk about now. And secretly, just between you and me,
and everyone that's listening,
I don't mind having those conversations because I think that you and I are probably pretty decent at navigating that and everything that kind of comes with that. But we'll see when the time comes. We'll cross that bridge.
In my writing days, I can tell you that it was an easier job, and I got way more reads and thus income when the Seahawks were bad. Because
really interesting.
Yeah, because people want to vent and give them an opportunity and vent with them, because I was pissed too. I mean, that's one thing about being a fan of a team that I'm was writing about is I was right there with them. The teams were bad, and Mora, and oh god, it was bad and painful and all of that. But man, people wanted to. They
have an outlet.
They had an out. They wanted an outlet, and they had an appetite for something other than what they hear on the radio, which all the people are like, they kind of work for the organization, and even if they don't, they depend on the organization for access to stuff. So they're very positive and whatever. And so having that opportunity to just whatever. And so I'm telling you, like I'm saying that it's easier, but it's less fun. What's fun, and you and I do this for fun. What's fun is covering a winning team and talking about, can they make a run? How deep can they go?
Yeah.
How do you match up? How do they match up against, Green Bay and getting into the like, okay, so they're going to try and put this player on DK. How do you attack that? And on a winning team, that's fun.
Yeah. But talking about weaknesses is just not.
Yeah. And so it might drive, you and I might gain a whole bunch of listeners as this team is bad. But you and I will be having a lot less fun, and I would rather have fun. So, not that we don't appreciate the people who are listening. So
true.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And follow Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. SeahawksPlaybook.com is the website. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and apps and YouTube, and make sure you subscribe. So until next time,
go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.